The floor was cold. Michael's socks were damp. He counted again, 197, 198, and his left foot still landed wrong. The garage smelled like motor oil and old wood. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting shadows that stretched and bent every time Michael moved. His brothers were inside the house, probably watching TV or fighting over the last piece of bread. Dad was at work. Mom was in the kitchen. And Michael was here, alone, trying to make his body do something it refused to do. The move wasn't complicated. At least, it didn't look complicated when Jermaine did it. Right foot slides back, left foot pops forward, hips twist, shoulders drop, and the whole thing flows like water. Jermaine made it look easy. Tito made it look smooth. Even Marlon, who was younger and still figuring out his balance, could get through it without stumbling. But Michael? Michael had been trying for 3 hours, and his left foot kept hitting the concrete a half-second too late, throwing off the rhythm, breaking the line, making the whole thing look clumsy and wrong. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. The bulb flickered once, twice, then held. His reflection in the small window across the garage showed a skinny kid in a wrinkled t-shirt and sagging socks, arms hanging at his sides, chest heaving. He didn't look like a performer. He looked like someone who was about to give up. But here's the part you can't miss. He didn't move toward the door. He reset his feet, rolled his shoulders, and started again. 199. Right foot back, left foot forward, hips first, then shoulders. Or was it shoulders, then hips? He'd watched Jermaine so many times he could see the move in his sleep, but his body wasn't listening. His left foot dragged, his knee locked. His arms flailed out for balance, and he stumbled, catching himself against the workbench with a hard thunk that sent a screwdriver rolling off the edge and clattering to the floor. Michael bent down, picked it up, set it back. Took a breath. The garage was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator in the corner and the faint sound of a car passing on the street outside. He looked at his feet. They were small, bony, still growing. His left ankle had a bruise from yesterday's rehearsal. His right sock had a hole near the toe. These were the feet that were supposed to carry him through the routine tomorrow night, in front of an audience, under lights, with his brothers counting on him to hit every mark. 200. He tried again. Right foot back. Smooth. Good. Left foot forward. Late again. Damn it. Hips twist, and his balance tipped. His weight shifted wrong, and he fell. Not hard. Just a stumble, a catch, a moment where his knee hit the concrete and his palm slapped down to stop himself. He stayed there for a second, crouched, breathing hard, staring at the oil stain on the floor. His knee throbbed, his hand stung, and somewhere deep in his chest, something twisted tight and hot, something that felt like anger and shame and frustration all rolled into one burning knot. He stood up, brushed off his hands. And that's when he heard the creak. The side door to the garage opened. Not all the way, just a crack. And through that crack, Michael saw his mother's face. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, holding a dish towel, her eyes moving from Michael's face to the floor, to the workbench, and back. She knew. Of course she knew. She always knew when one of her boys was struggling. She had that gift, the ability to sense when something was wrong without being told. Michael straightened, tried to look casual. Like he was just taking a break. Like he hadn't just fallen for the 200th time. "How long you been out here?" she asked. Her voice was soft, careful, the way it always was when she knew the answer might hurt. Not long, Michael said. His throat felt dry. Just working on something. She stepped inside, let the door close behind her. The towel was still in her hands, twisted into a loose coil. She walked over to the workbench, leaned against it, and looked at him. Not with pity, not with disappointment, just looked, like she was reading a book she'd read before, but wanted to understand better this time. "Show me," she said. Michael hesitated. He didn't want to. Didn't want her to see him mess it up again. But she was already waiting, arms crossed, patient. So he reset. Right foot back, left foot forward, hips twist, shoulders drop. And his foot dragged. His knee buckled. He caught himself, barely, and stopped. His mother didn't move, didn't say anything, just watched. Wait. Notice this moment. This is where everything shifts. Not in the move, not in the success, in the watching. "Do it again," she said. He did. Same result. Foot late, balance off, stumble. Again. He did it again, and again, and again. 5 times, 10 times. Each one the same, each one wrong. And his mother stood there, silent, watching every attempt like it was the first time she'd seen it. By the 15th try, Michael's chest was tight, his eyes stinging, his fists clenched so hard his nails dug into his palms. He stopped, turned away, couldn't look at her. "I can't do it," he said. The words came out thick, choked. "I've tried 200 times. I can't." His mother didn't move. The garage was so quiet, Michael could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Then she spoke. 5 words, simple, clear, no wasted breath. "You're counting the wrong thing." Michael turned. "What?" She stepped forward, close enough that he could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the way her mouth curved just slightly, not quite a smile, but not far from it. "Then what does?" His voice cracked. "You're counting how many times you fall. Count how many times you stand back up." Michael stared at her. The bulb overhead flickered again. Somewhere in the house, a door slammed. A brother laughed. Life kept moving, indifferent to this moment. But Michael stood frozen, his mother's words landing somewhere deep, somewhere he didn't have language for yet. 200 tries, she continued, her voice steady, grounding. 200 times you didn't quit. That's not failure, baby. That's 200 pieces of trying. You think Jermaine got it on the first try? You think Tito didn't fall? They make it look easy, Michael whispered, because you don't see their 200. She reached out, touched his shoulder lightly. Everybody's got 200. The only difference is who keeps going after. She let that sit. Then she nodded toward the open space in the middle of the garage. Now stop counting tries. Start counting what you learn each time. What's wrong with number 200? Michael thought, My left foot's too slow. Good. So what do you try on 201? Make it faster? Try it. He did. Right foot back. Left foot forward. Faster this time. Hips twist. Shoulders drop. And he still stumbled, but differently. The stumble came earlier, sharper, like his body was trying to overcorrect. "What'd you learn?" his mother asked. "Too fast now. I'm rushing it." "Good. 202. He tried again. slowed the left foot, focused on the timing. Right foot, left foot, hips, shoulders, and this time, his foot landed clean. His balance held. His body moved in one smooth line, start to finish. No stumble, no catch, no fall. He finished the move and stood there, frozen, afraid that if he moved, he'd break whatever spell had just worked. His mother smiled. Not big, not dramatic, just a small, quiet curve of her mouth that said she'd known all along he could do it. 201, she said. That's the one that mattered. Michael's chest loosened, his hands unclenched. He felt lighter, like something heavy he'd been carrying had just been set down. Can I try it again? As many times as you want, she said. But remember, you're not counting failures anymore. You're counting lessons. She turned, walked back toward the door, and paused with her hand on the handle. And Michael? He looked up. 200 tries means you care. Don't ever stop caring that much. She left. The door clicked shut. And Michael stood alone in the garage again, under the flickering bulb, with damp socks and a bruised ankle and a hole in his sock. But something had changed. The air felt different. The concrete didn't seem as cold. He reset his feet, rolled his shoulders, and tried the move again. 202, clean. 203, clean. 204, stumbled, learned, adjusted. 205, clean. He lost count somewhere around 230. By 250, he wasn't counting at all. He was just moving, feeling, learning. The garage filled with the sound of his feet on concrete, the rhythm of his breath, the quiet hum of trying without the weight of failure. And when he finally stopped, hours later, when his legs were shaking and his shirt was soaked and the bulb had dimmed to a dull orange glow, he realized something his mother had known all along. The move didn't get easier. He got stronger. That night, at the show, under the lights, with the audience watching and his brothers beside him, Michael hit the move. Clean, smooth, perfect. And when it was over, when the crowd clapped and his brothers grinned and his father nodded from the side of the stage, Michael didn't think about the 200 times he'd fallen. He thought about the 200 times he'd stood back up. And he understood, finally, what his mother had been trying to teach him. Success isn't about not falling. It's about what you do after you hit the ground. The next morning, Michael woke before sunrise. His body ached, calves tight, ankles sore, the bruise on his knee darker now, spreading like spilled ink under the skin. He lay in bed for a moment, listening to Marlon's steady breathing beside him, the creak of the house settling, the distant sound of a truck rumbling past on the street. Then he got up, careful not to wake anyone, and walked back to the garage. The concrete was even colder in the morning. The bulb looked dimmer, older, like it had used up most of its life the night before. Michael stood in the center of the space, bare feet on the oil-stained floor, and tried the move. Once, twice, 10 times. It wasn't perfect every time. Sometimes his foot still dragged. Sometimes his balance wavered. But he didn't fall. And when he did stumble, he didn't stop. He adjusted, learned, moved forward. By the time his brothers woke up, Michael had run through the move 50 more times. By the time breakfast was on the table, he'd lost count. And when Jermaine asked him why his socks were dirty and his knees were scraped, Michael just shrugged and said, "Practicing." Jermaine didn't press. He knew. They all knew. In the Jackson house, you either worked or you fell behind. And falling behind wasn't an option. That afternoon, during rehearsal in the living room, the brothers ran through the full routine. Dad sat in his chair by the window, arms crossed, eyes sharp, watching every step, every turn, every beat. When they hit the section with the move Michael had been working on, Jermaine led, smooth and effortless, And then it was Michael's turn. Right foot back, left foot forward, hips twist, shoulders drop. Clean, no stumble, no catch. Just movement, fluid and sure, like he'd been doing it his whole life. Dad didn't say anything, didn't nod, didn't smile. But when the routine finished and the brothers stood breathing hard in the middle of the room, Dad looked at Michael and said, "Again." They ran it again and again. And each time Michael hit the move. Each time his body remembered what his mind had finally learned, that falling wasn't the end. It was just information. Notice this. The lesson didn't come from getting it right. It came from learning how to fail without breaking. That's the part most people miss. They see the performance, the final product, the polished result. They don't see the 200 tries. They don't see the garage. They don't see the mother with the dish towel and the 5 words that changed everything. But Michael saw it, and he never forgot. The show the next night was at a small venue. Nothing fancy, folding chairs, a makeshift stage, a crowd of maybe 200 people who'd paid $1 each to see local acts perform. The Jackson 5 went on third, after a girl who sang off-key and a man who did magic tricks with a deck of cards. The lights were hot, the stage was slippery, the microphone feed crackled every time someone moved too fast. But when the music started and the brothers hit their marks, none of that mattered. Jermaine took the lead, voice strong and clear. Tito and Jackie flanked him, moving in sync, hitting every beat. Marlon grinned at the crowd, working the front row like he'd been born to do it. And Michael waited for his moment. When the move came, the one he'd practiced 200 times, the one he'd fallen on, stumbled through, fought with until his body finally understood, Michael didn't think. He just moved. Right foot back, left foot forward, hips twist, shoulders drop. Clean. Smooth. Perfect. The crowd didn't erupt. They didn't even know it was hard. To them, it looked easy, effortless, like he'd always known how. But Michael knew. And his mother, standing near the back of the room, arms crossed, watching her boys under the lights, knew. She saw the move. She saw the 200 tries behind it. And when Michael's eyes found hers for just a split second, she nodded. Small, quiet, just enough. That nod meant more than the applause, more than Dad's approval, more than the $5 bill they split at the end of the night. That nod said, "I see you. I see the work. I see what it cost, and I'm proud." Afterward, in the car on the way home, the brothers talked over each other, replaying the show, arguing about who hit their mark and who didn't, laughing at the magician who dropped his cards. Michael sat in the back, quiet, looking out the window at the streetlights sliding past. His knee still hurt. His socks were still damp. His body still ached. But something inside him felt different, settled, sure. He thought about his mother's words, "You're counting the wrong thing." And he realized she was right. He'd been counting failures, measuring himself by what he couldn't do instead of what he'd learned. But now he understood. Every fall was just data. Every mistake was just a step closer to getting it right. And the only real failure was stopping before you got there. Years later, when Michael Jackson stood on stages that held 50,000 people, when he moved in ways that seemed impossible, when he made his body do things that defied physics and logic and reason, people would call it talent, natural ability, a gift. But Michael knew better. He knew that every move, every step, every moment of grace and control was built on a foundation of falling, of trying, of standing back up when your knee hurt and your socks were damp and the concrete was cold, and the only person watching was your mother with a dish towel and 5 words that meant everything. You're counting the wrong thing. He'd spent his whole life learning how to count right, how to measure progress not by perfection, but by persistence. How to see 200 failures as 200 lessons. And that understanding, that shift in perspective, was what separated him from everyone else who tried and quit. He didn't have more talent, he didn't have more luck, he just had more tries, more willingness to fall, more strength to stand back up. And in a garage in Gary, Indiana, under a flickering bulb, with a mother who saw what others missed, Michael Jackson learned the most important lesson of his life. You don't become great by avoiding failure. You become great by refusing to let failure define you. That's the story they don't tell. That's the part that doesn't make the highlight reel. But it's the part that matters most. Because talent might open the door, but persistence is what carries you through. And every legend, every icon, every name that echoes through history started the same way. Falling down, standing up, and counting the right thing.